Okay, so we'll look at Dead Space 3 at 21:9. Now the third game in the series continues the success of the previous two, not quite as superbly, but still providing a thrilling experience, and is a game that hooked me really easily once I started. I usually don't get so hooked on a game and want to power through it and finish it as much as I did with this, and really the only letdown I felt was the toning down in the horror element in place of the action. Anyway, there is a lot to talk about with this and where the game currently stands, but let's first go over the 21:9 support. So once again, EA has done a brilliant job. EA really do usually support PC very well, and once again they have proved their technical prowess, with oh so nearly perfect native ultra-wide support. Once you select your resolution and frame rate choice, of which they seem to decide listing every possible combination ever was the best idea, the game will automatically show you more on the sides of the screen, in just about every moment. Gameplay, menus, cutscenes, they all work perfectly, because they're all in-game views. Menus don't cut to some pre-designed image, but instead you're looking at a screen and a load of machines that change those screens to like the settings area, and is all set in a live environment, and as such it means that you don't have to face black bars or stretching for that matter at any point. The two very minor moments that you do face black bars in the entire game is firstly the pre-rendered cutscene showing off what happened previously in the two games and explaining how you got to where you are, and basically it's impossible to have expected this to have been 21:9, and because it's just at the very start of the game, you won't come across it again and you'll soon forget it was even black barred. And the second set of black barred moments are loading screens, which again are so temporary you will hardly notice their existence. So all in all, a brilliant ultra-wide game. A feature I really want to see integrated into every game is the way it transitions from cutscenes to gameplay and back. It does it so seamlessly, and it's really lovely to watch. It emphasizes the idea of not taking you out of the moment. Things haven't just stopped and you're now a bystander, you remain in character essentially, and I felt this helped retain the suspense the game had built up while you were in control, because leaving to cut to a cutscene can break your attention and let you relax as you know you aren't in control, whereas now you aren't given that chance, and it's an important point for a game where the idea is sustained threat. So performance-wise, things are exceptionally solid. I maintained an extremely stable 95 FPS the entire time I played, through big action sequences to space scenes to great numbers of enemies just attacking simultaneously. It's a joy to play, and this is all in the highest possible settings on a 980 Ti at 3440 by 1440. I must point out as well, the lighting is fantastic. Of special note as well, the lighting from Isaac's visor is a beautiful effect, and another set piece where you're fighting in a room where it's strobing red light as you're trying to fight off a mass of enemies helped create immense tension as visibility was so low. I really loved that scene. So back on the gameplay, after playing a lot of Dead Space 1 and 2, I was very happy to see an even more detailed experience with Dead Space 3. Beautiful animations to weapons and general movement, and a story that continues to drive you into the Dead Space roster of characters trying to kill you. But what really is my favourite piece is the setting is gorgeous. Floating around in open space is a wonderful feeling, and really, as I touched on before, the only thing that lets it down is the loss of the horror element. The game now feels more of an action thriller than an action horror game, so it still pushes you to be a bit uneasy, but in trying to open up the appeal of the game to more people, it lost a bit of what made it so excellent before. It never was a full-on horror series, but it had the maximum amount possible to keep players like me, who don't like full horror-only titles, engaged while injecting the action to keep you on your toes and fighting for your life. And it always worked so fantastically. and it's very likely that this is what caused Dead Space 3 to sell so poorly, and leading to the worrying potential for no Dead Space 4. However, reading around, Visceral Games doesn't seem to have completely discounted a return to the franchise, and I really do believe it is absolutely worth a new release. Do exactly what they did in Dead Space 3, but just turn up the horror element slightly to return it to Dead Space 2 days. The reason I'm completely behind a new title is Dead Space 3, like 2 and 1, has a fantastic core set of mechanics. The requirements to shoot off enemy limbs and the sense of unease as to where the next threat will come from and what form it will take is really addictive gameplay. And the style of weapons you fight with is truly unique. And Dead Space 3 really has developed the weapon system well. Building and crafting new weapons into different sets and combination is great fun. And on top of this, it can be completely played through in co-op, a feature sorely missed from so many games nowadays, even just for side stuff, let alone an entire campaign. So, overall, I would absolutely recommend picking up Dead Space 3. It's a really fun action game with only a skimming of horror, and I'm sure those of you who are slightly worried that the horror element isn't for you will pleasantly find out it's actually not bad, and in fact makes the stakes suddenly feel far higher and keeps you attentive, unlike many shooters nowadays which can just get a bit stale. Plus, it's possible to pick up this for like £2 now, so it's hardly an investment. And pair this with fantastic 21x9 support, of which I'm inclined to give it a full score of 5 out of 5. However, I'm not going to, and actually I'm just going to settle with 4 out of 5, purely because I want to hold games at a score of 5 only when they are absolutely perfect. But do not let that take away from the absolute fact that this is one of the best ultra-wide supported games out there right now, and I am so glad it's on a game that's worth it. Now, of course, I should just briefly address the topic of microtransactions, something Dead Space 3 took a lot of flack over when released. The reality of the situation is it's fine. In fact, it's totally fine. I at no point felt I needed to spend money for resources. I never felt lacking in power or that things were being held back, and I certainly didn't feel that it was being shoved in my face. I have no opinion on microtransactions like this that don't actually lock anything behind a paywall, but can just help those players that want to pay to make things easier, or they just don't have the time to slog through and earn them. It's a single player game essentially, so it wouldn't even matter if someone could buy the best gun in the game straight away. They would only be screwing themselves over. It doesn't affect anyone else. And as long as the resource gathering isn't made harder to try and get you to buy and incentivize you to buy with real money extra stuff in game, then yeah, I'm not gonna bash it. It really isn't an issue here. Anyway, I hope that gives you some information on how the game runs at 21x9. Give this video a like if you found it helpful, and subscribe for future info. For any other games at 21x9, head over to my channel. Hopefully I've covered it. If I haven't, then leave a comment down below and I'll try and cover it. And if you'd like to donate to the channel, the links to my Patreon page are in the description. See you later.
Oh shit! This one's regenerating!
How are you going to kill it?
I'm not!
The tram will arrive shortly. Please stand by.